Hey there, welcome to my channel. So let's continue with our episode. In the previous episode, we have added how we can validate our card request, right? Create card request. So in this episode, we are going to work on the communications between both the services, right? And we will work on this card management as well as, right? Let's go to the source code. Right. So here in the source code, I have added all the error response as I said in the previous episode. So why all those error response are needed? If you go here inside this utils, and there is a directory that is called error, and if you see here in this index file, we're exporting all the validator, status code, and the errors, right? So why all these errors are needed? Because while we are going to communicate with both the microservice, then it has to share some kind of the common DNA in terms of the same error code or same type of message. So both the microservices are aware about what exactly other microservices says, right? So rather than use the plain error code or plain error message, so make it simple. So what we can do, maybe in future we can make a kind of shared common library, and maybe a kind of, you can say, private npm package or public npm package, and that particular package you can use in both the microservice, right? So once you are changing that error codes or something in the common library, then both the microservice will be always stay up to date, right? So this is how we are using the shared packages, right? But in our case, we are not creating any npm package. I just don't want to make it too complicated. Maybe another video tutorial, I'm going to make it like how we can create the common libraries, right? So here in the errors, you can see this is the error, base error, that is we have extended from our error, right? And these are some of the custom error that is we have created, that is called API error, which is going to always to throw an internal server code. So this status code we have created here, another file. So here you can mention all the status codes, right? So okay, bad request, and unauthorized, not found, or the internal errors, right? So these are the basic errors right now. These are the basic status code it's going to be needed at this moment. And later stage maybe we can extend a little bit more, but as of now these are enough, right? And the errors are similar like API validation, authorization, and not found, and it has all these meaningful messages, right? And eventually you can pass the custom messages as well as, right? But you can see all the errors are it is inheriting from where? It is from base error, right? And base error is extending from our error. So while we are looking for that particular error, what kind of error exactly it is, so we can look at if it is a kind of instance of the base error, then report these are the known error, all right? Besides that, if it is not an instance of this base error anymore, then we can say these are unknown error, right? So maybe we cannot make it operational or something. Then we need to fix all those errors, right? But this is really good way to manage the errors, right? And finally, we are creating one handler. So here, this handler, it's going to tackle all the errors, so make sure your application will not crash, all right? So by looking at if our reported errors are known error, right? Then provide the message accordingly to the client. So at least the client can propagate the proper message rather than showing a lot of errors log or something, right? So that is we are just doing right here. So we are assigning proper status code, proper messages to the response, and end of the day it is sending that particular response to the client, right? And additionally, we have added the logger also. So you might have thinking why we are talking about the logger. So logger is an essential part of the application. So while we are fulfilling a request, then definitely we have the request and response right there, and during the operation, if something is going wrong, then there is no way to trace it back, right? So the only thing it can be helpful, this logger, right? So in our case, we have used the Pinot logger. You might have heard about it, or if you are not familiar with Pinot, the Pinot is a very good in terms of like HTTP logger, where we can log our request, right? And response based on like level, we can assign the level. It may be info, it may be warning or error, something like that, right? And we can assign some custom parameters. So same type of the common logger also you can utilize for different services, right? So and we have created a transporter right here, so which is going to transport all these things to any kind of the error logging tool. As an example, the Sentry, or maybe CloudWatch, or maybe Grafana, or with the help of the Prometheus and Loki, right? So These are the things we can do it, but as of now we are just using Pinot just to print it out our request and response in our console, right? With the help of Pinot HTTP logger, right? So this logger exactly, it's already integrated right here. If you see here in handler, you can see our logger is here, right? That logger is exactly, it's coming from our Pinot logger, right? This logger, right? And now this is the handler. It's going to handle all the errors if encountered throughout of the application process. Then it will handle and send it back to the client. But what if, like, how we can entice this logger, right? We can throw any kind of error inside the deep inside from the application, but it has to report only one single place. It should not supposed to catch it in many places. Like that is really a wrong model. So we're going to follow some kind of a central error logging model or central error handling pattern. So that is we are going to implement right here in Express app. So what we can do here. So first of all, you can see we have not imported the logger. First, let's try to import the logger here. This is going to be our import from, and here we will say from utility, right? Utility. And do we have any import right here from the utility? Go to index. No, we don't have anything right here, right? So what do we have? We don't have any index file inside this utility. So what we can do, let's try to create one index file. Yes, right. Rather than pointing to our pictures, errors, or somewhere. So this is I'm talking about right now in the catalog. So maybe same thing we can do for our order service as well as, right? So because right now we need to fix the catalog service first, then we will be going to jump to the order service because order service is going to call our catalog service, right? Perfect. So now our util is perfectly fine. So at any point of time, we can just directly refer to our util directory. So now you can see inside this catalog service, we are just like editing this Express app, all right? So make sure while we are try to access the catalog routes endpoints, then our logger has to be perfectly taken care of all the requests and response. So while we are going to call from here, then at least we can see, yeah, this call is coming from our order service or some other source or something like that, right? Okay, so let's try to fix this one first, then utils. Then what are the things we are going to import? The first of all, we can say the HTTP logger. Then we can say the error, not error exactly, handle error. So here inside somewhere we have added that one, I think. Validator, handler, yes, handle error with logger. So I think this one we have not imports here, right? Maybe, yeah, we have not import here also. So what we need to do, yes, handler also, export handler, right? So make sure while we are using the index file, and if you try to expose any file inside that particular directory, you need to re-export again. Then only it's going to be exposed if you are try to point at that the error directory. So here that is the case. Actually, it happened to us because we try to point it to our util directory to get all the export from there. But you can see inside this here in util directory also. If you see inside util directory, we have imported error, but inside error we missed that handler function handler file right here. So that's why it was not coming up there. But in this case right now it's going to come. This is called handle with the handle error with logger. So this is the function going to be needed, right? This is the kind of middleware we are going to use. So now what we can do, let's try to use this one first. Then we will say app.use, right? So this is our last route that is going to, if anything not going to be handled from here, right? Then it will throw or it will just pass that particular thing, that execution to our next cycle of execution, right? Then what is going to happen? Then if you see in the Express, we have like the request, response, and next, right? So if you go to catalog routes here, if something is going wrong, then what we are going to do, like instead of throwing this error from here, we can simply say next function, right? Next that particular error. Then it is going to handle right here, right here. So let's try to handle that one. Next, app used handle error with logger. So this handle error with logger going to going to handle everything, right? So instead of crashing the application, it will going to handle and respond back to the client. Perfect. So I think this is all good. Only thing we need to implement is HTTP logger, right? So the similar way we can do it, but right before this handler, we need to use our HTTP logger, right? So let's try to use here app use. Here we are going to say simply HTTP logger, right? So now it is perfectly fine, right? So if you're going to run the application, then you should supposed to see something else, right? Some different way, rather than showing like app is listening to the particular port number, it will show something differently. So you can see the magic right here, right? So right now inside the catalog service, let's try to install all the prerequisites. So just a quick information, while you are using this HTTP logger, so these are the two libraries. One is the Pino HTTP and another one is the Pino, right? So you can dig around all these libraries in their official website. Then you can get a lot of like informations in terms of what are the way we can implement it, right? So why we have added this timestamp and why exactly this transport or target levels are needed, right? So those are the things you can get it from there, right? But absolutely, this is not a kind of like observability or maybe monitoring class. So maybe in another tutorial, I'm going to explain how we can make it meaningful. Already I have a kind of different series that is yet to release. It's based on only how we can use the Grafana and Loki and Prometheus together for microservices, right? But anyway, that's a different topic. I don't want to deviate anymore. Okay, so let's try to close it out. So I have already installed this. These are the two libraries. Make sure you have installed first, right? And now let's try to run our application yarn dev, right? Okay, so it seems like we have some trouble right here. It seems this is like unable to determine transport target for the Pino PD. So we need to install this Pino PD. So why exactly it is throwing the error? Here, if you see in the logger, right? So we are using transport target. So this is Pino PD is not required anymore, right? Pino PD is, if you are going to use the Pino PD, that is only for development environment only, just for your machine. So production, we can use something else. As an example, you can use Sentry or some other target. So what Pino PD is doing, it is making your logs beautiful, rather than the way it is. Let's say it is coming in the one single line, then it will break down the whole request into multiple lines to at least it'll make it readable. So that is what exactly Pino PD is doing. So let's try to install Pino PD for us, right? So yarn add Pino PD, right? So now we can spin our application. But right before spin the application, let's visit our server.ts file. So here you can see we are using console log, right? So what we can do, we are not going to use the console log anymore. So instead of this console log, what we can do, we can say console. Instead of console, we can say logger.info, right? So instead of log, we can say logger.info, right? Wherever we need to give the information, we will say logger info. And if there are any kind of error, then we can say logger.error, right? Instead of this log, we can say log error. And here also we can say this logger.info, right? And now if we are going to spin the application, we should supposed to see our logger logs right there, right? Yarn dev. Now can you see it is giving some different way, right? These are information, app is listening to port this one or something like that. Perfect. So I think this is what we are setting it up right now to handle all the errors and request and response, etc. So we'll be dig deeper a little bit to tracing our logs and the correlated ID, etc. But that's a different topic. Now let's get back to our microservice communication. Okay. So what we are going to do from our order microservice, we're going to we are just to try to create our card from here. Go to service. And card service, so this get product details is getting called, right? So here what we need to provide, the product ID. So to call that particular endpoint, so we need to use one of the endpoints from our catalog microservice, right? So let's go here in the catalog microservice. Here inside the routes, go to API catalog routes. So what we are going to use, we're going to use this get products ID, right? So this is what we need, right? So you can use a separate dedicated particular the route per internal microservice, but you can see like this just to get the product informations. This is not a kind of protected data anymore, right? Only just to get the product details. So the way we are getting the product details from our client, right? This is the particular route we can use. And another thing, a lot of people, they're asking like, what are the way we can secure our microservices? In my opinion, if the microservices are deployed in the same environment in terms of like the same VPC or same logical boundary in terms of, let's say, inside the Kubernetes, inside maybe Fargate or somewhere, then there is you don't need to maintain extra type of like extra layer of security right there, because those are the calls. It is going to be internally communicated by your localhost from your microservice using like let's say if you are deploying the whole microservice inside a kind of EC2 instance, right? Then microservice A is going to run localhost, let's say 9001, and B is going to be run in the localhost 9002. Both the microservice is going to expose their endpoint to the outside world using some kind of the load balancer. That's a different story. But while it comes to the communications between the microservice internally, there is no extra security is going to be needed in the first place. But yes, if you are dealing with payment in permissions or some crucial credentials or that is need to interchange with both the microservice, maybe A or B, then you can maintain some kind of security layer on the top. But in that case, maybe you can use some kind of the API key or maybe a custom API gateway you can use, all right, which is going to deal with all the microservice as a kind of firewall. It's going to be communicated. It's going to help to maintain the security. But in our case, it's not more required anymore. These are not a kind of sensitive data anymore. These are just like the product details. So let's try to keep it this way, right? So in this case, what we are going to do, so while we are going to return this data, right? So we are simply saying if we have any kind of error, then let's try to send it back, just like next, and we will be saying the error, right? So not even error message also. So error, this error. Perfect. And while we are having data, then we are going to send the status 200 and the data, right? This is what we are looking for. And get product, this is also fine. So here nothing to do with this. Any changes is required. It's not required anymore. Only we need to find it out the data from our catalog service and send it back. So this is the endpoint we are going to use. Okay, so now let's try to spin our another microservice, right? But before that, I think we need to do the similar thing for our order microservice as well as the way we did for our catalog microservice. So let's try to grab a whole piece of code from there. If you go to Express app, let's try to grab this error handler from here. I'm going to close rest of all, close orders. And inside here, inside the order microservice, let's go to our Express app. And here also you can put it in at the end of this file here. And yeah, this is it's not exported at all. So let's try to do this similar way, just like we did for our this one. Here inside the utils directory, we don't have anything, right? So let's try to create that particular index file, index.ts, and let's try to export from so now we have everything right here. Okay, so what we can do, let's go to Express. Now we can import just the quick fix this one, so it will automatically import from the utils. And the another way we can do the logger also, HTTP logger, right? This is what we can do it from here. And the similar way we can use right before our routes, right? App use, and we can use this HTTP logger, right? So now again, just to go to the server, and here instead of this one, we can say logger, and this is and this will be logger. Right, that's okay. Right now, everything is set up, right? So here inside this this route, what we can do, card service, let's say, right? So here get product details. Here, while we are calling that particular call, right? So here maybe we can print it out. Logger.info. We can say product, right? So whatever the product we are getting it from there, then we can get it here, right? Now this is ready, but we need to add some code to get the product details, right? So let's go to here and get product details. And inside this one, we are just like sending some kind of mock data, right? So here what we can do, first of all, we need to use some kind of HTTP APIs, right? That is need to call our microservice. So in our case, we are going to use Axios. So import Axios from Axios. So we don't have Axios as of now. So let's try to install Axios in our catalog library. Right. So yarn add Axios. Perfect. So now Axios is there. And then what we need to do, we need to create one kind of like our endpoint base URL. This is going to be const catalog base URL, and this is going to be our HTTP, right? So this is, it has to be grabbed from our environment variable, right? So this is, we can grab it from there. So what we can do, process.env dot this one, otherwise we will be grabbing this one from here, because while we are going to deploy these things in our remote server, then definitely if this URL may be changed, right? Maybe instead of localhost, we are going to use some kind of like, you know, internal IP address of our EC2 instance, or maybe private cluster, or maybe private instance, whatever we are going to use, right? So that is, we can inject right there. So let's try to assign these things right here in let's try to copy these things from here and edit here this env file, right? So right after this one, we can say this is not going to be equal. So like this. You can omit this double quotation also. It's gonna work, right? Now, why it is throwing this error? So I think this is inside order service. We have installed in catalog service. All right. So what you can do? Let's try to close this one. Go back to our order service. Order service. Yarn add Axios. Right, so rather than making it confusion, so what I can do, I'm going to close one of the terminal. I'm going to keep open just one, which is I'm just currently going to work. Then once all the changes are done, maybe then we can run both the microservice parallelly, right? Cd order service, right? So now we are inside order service. So all right, so we have a catalog service base URL. So now let's try to get the data, right? So in this case, let's say we are going to use some kind of try catch, right? Because definitely you are calling third-party API, then errors are like encountering error is a normal thing. So you should have the error handling mechanism in the first place, right? That's why we're just like wrapping it up with the try catch. So in this case, let's say const response will be our await, and Axios, we can say this is a kind of get call. There's no security, all right? We are not using any security, and we are using string interpolator just to use our base URL. So catalog base URL, and slash what we are going to call. If you go here in the, I'm going to close rest of other files, save. And if you go here in the catalog microservice, right? So here inside this API routes, what we are going to call products ID, right? So products and ID. So this is what we need to mention right here. So this is going to be product, and inside this one, we're going to pass whatever the product we are looking for, that particular product ID. Perfect. So now we have the complete request, right? So here what we are going to choose. We are going to say product will be come from where? Response data, right? Data from the response data, we will be grabbing the product. But can you see, like, this product is a type of any, right? But we don't want the any type, right? It has to be strictly typed. So at least we can verify right here in the card service. So while we are going to call this product details, then it has to return a kind of product model. Right, that is what we need to do. But let's try to handle the error first. So we are going to remove this part from here, and we will say catch the error. This is going to be throw new API error, right? Because it's a kind of API error, right? So we are going to call this API, then we are encountering error, definitely API error. So here, this error, we are going to log it, logger.log, or maybe error. You can say error, we will be putting right there, right? And here, this API error, we will be sending something else. This is going to be product not found, right? There are two cases only can be there. Either product doesn't exist, or product can be exist. These are the two things, right? So if you're providing valid product ID, then definitely you will get the product. Otherwise, product doesn't exist, right? These are the two cases need to handle. Then finally, if everything goes well, then let's try to return this product. Cool. But can you say like where we are using this one, this card service, right? This product exactly has to have the stock the property. So how we can get it? So let's try to create one kind of DTO right here inside here. We're going to call it product DTO. Yes. Right. Then inside this product DTO, let's try to export interface. And this product, inside this product we will be having the property of ID will be number, and we can have a name. Name can have a string, and we can have a price. Price will be number, and we can have a stock. And this is going to be number, and we can have a variant as well as. This is going to be string. It can be small, big, or medium, or whatever it is, right? So we have our product. So let's try to cast it as product here. So what we can do directly, we can send it back from here rather than creating another variable as product, right? So the product we need to import it. So inside DTO, right? So here inside DTO, okay, cool. So let's try to import it. Right, so now we have our product. Now if you go to our card service, all right, perfect. So now we will be getting the product here. And if everything goes well, then we're going to create this this particular card, right? So let's try to do it right here, right? So what we can do, I'm going to comment it out this piece of code, and instead of this data, we are going to return it back the product, right? So at least we can get some kind of response right there while we're just creating the card. Okay, so now this is the time where we can run the application, but before that, make sure like we have spin our application correctly with the proper database. So in this case, we have our catalog service, we have our order service, and both the service can have their own migration. So make sure we have proper Docker Compose file where we can dedicate it to their particular the database, right? Dedicated database. So we have two databases. One is called catalog DB server, and another one is the order DB server. So some of you already asked me like whether we can use the same database for both the microservice or not. I would say yes, we can use it, but I would say don't use it, right? Because why we are making the microservice? Because we just try to isolate the data operations and all these things to a separate process, you know, where we can have a better flexibility to work autonomously, right? So where we can work on dedicated features for particular business domain only. As an example, catalog service, all the data related to product, data related to the inventory, stock, etc. So why we are just messing up with like order or maybe money or something like where all the calculation has to be happen, right? That's why we are just creating. That's why we are just splitting up the order service from the catalog service. And again, if you are going to use the same database, then it doesn't make sense at all to make a microservice architecture, right? So end of the day, you are doing like, you know, though it's a microservice, it's a kind of distributed monolithic, right? Because your source of truth is from the one place, right? That's why we should have to have the dedicated like isolated database per microservice. So independently, it can be perform their operations without interrupting the other services. Cool. All right, so let's try to execute our Docker Compose file so we can have like we can spin our database server right here, right? I am right now in the root directory. Let's switch back to our DB directory where our Docker Compose file is residing. So All right, so let's spin our services, right? So first one, yarn dev, and order also, order microservice also yarn dev, right? So both the microservices are running. So now let's go to our Postman here. So here in the Postman, let's try to get all the products. So get all products. So in this case, you can see we have 2 products, right? So we have 2 products. One is out of stock, right? This is stock is 0, and another, at least we have the two items in the stock, right? So let's try to call this one, right? So here we are inside this order collection. We're going to create the cart, right? So here we can simply provide the product ID 2, right? And quantity we can say 1, right? And if you call this cart, then it should have to return the product information from our catalog service, right? And now can you see our order service internally call our catalog service, and it received the product information and it is passing back to us. So at least we can create the cart, right? So now let's try to call another ID that doesn't exist at all. As an example, product ID 3. And can you see it says product not found, right? And now just to try to call the product ID 1, right? Then if we send, it seems like it is throwing the error, but it is not saying the product is out of stock. So let's try to fix this issue, right? Let's go to our source code. And if you go here inside this, the catalog service, let's try to verify what we are sending from there, right? So inside this API, go to catalog routes. And first of all, while we are getting the product item from here, you can see we are calling this route, right? Product ID. And if you go to get product, then you can see we are not throwing anything from here, but from the repository, maybe there's something we need to tweak. Let's go to repository. So inside this repository, and go to catalog repository, and you can see we are finding the data, and we are just trying to send some kind of response from here. So what we can do, instead of this plain error, we'll be sending some kind of the meaningful error that is already we have added in the util directories. So this one we will say not found error, right? Because it's really the product doesn't exist, so definitely it will be a not found error, right? And this part is okay. Then now let's go to our catalog routes again, but we need to update the stock as well as, so make sure we're handling our stock stuff correctly. So here in this update product request, make sure you're removing this one, right? This mean 01, because we are making it optional, but again, we are just setting it up the mean 1. So we can remove this one. Then this stock, we can mark it as number, right? Is number, right? So this is perfectly fine. So I think the catalog side we are good, right? So while we are going to call this one, this get products, right? Then it will, if there is a kind of error, then it will throw the error from here, right? And while we are updating the product, then it has to be update the stock correctly, right? This is what we are doing here. Now let's close our catalog service from here and go to order service. In the cart routes, what we can do, we need to tweak a little bit right here as well as. So while we are creating the cart from here, go to our create cart function, right? And here you can see we're getting the product item right there, right? So this is the whole product, and we are checking it out whether we have the stock is less than input quantity. Then we are returning the error from here, or if it is the product stock is greater than our input quantity or equal quantity input quantity, then we can just create the cart from here, right? This is the part we can do. But can you see this is error? This is not a kind of meaningful error. What we can do, we will send it out from here, error not found error. Perfect. So now let's try to call it again from here. This time it should have to throw a proper error. And can you see it says product is out of stock? Perfect. So now both the scenario we have checked, right? Now let's go ahead again the catalog service right here and update the stock here. So update stock, and this time the product ID 1 we can set like product stock is 10, right? And send it back. You can see we have the 10 stock right now. Then just to go to and create the cart. Right now this time it has to be successfully create the cart, right? Can you see? Now it is giving the correct data. Cool. So I think the scenario is clear right now, and we can fairly move forward with the create the card, right? All right, so that's all for today. In the next episode, we're going to create our card using real data.